It's 2:33. I'm Matthew Alvarez here for RSBN Live.
And I'm Robert McNeely, fresh off probably one of the coolest trips of all time to our nation's capital, down to West Palm Beach, Florida, of course, sunny southern Florida. And Matthew, I'm sure you know, as you drive into Florida, you see the signs, and I like the characteristics of not only churches here down south, but also the state line signs. In Florida, it says, "Welcome to the free state of Florida," and then, "Come on back to the free state of Florida. We want to see you back here." So I get a kick out of it. Georgia, of course, we're glad Georgia's on your mind, and of course the governor's names respectively there. But thank you again to President Trump for a wonderful trip on Air Force One, and to cover him while he was playing golf this weekend, and not just any regular round, the championship round at Mar-a-Lago, well, actually at Trump International, but part of the Mar-a-Lago Club. And this is looking like, sadly, it'll be his last, announcing on Truth Social. But another great victory for the president. So congratulations, sir. And in the meantime, you might have caught over the weekend, also striking Houthi rebels. I mean, what can the man not do? It's pretty incredible to watch.
He just doesn't stop. We know that. It's great to see that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And speaking of victory, a victory for the network of sorts for this weekend, for that trip that you were on with our great camera operator. So, yeah, that was awesome to see that. As we are waiting here for the Pentagon to have a press briefing, we're told that the Air Force Lieutenant General Alexis Grenkowicz, the Director of Operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Chief Pentagon Spokesman, Sean Parnell, will brief the media there at the Pentagon here in about 10 minutes or so. To your point, the Houthis' rebel surgical strike. I mean, you're on this trip over the weekend, and the president is in a polo shirt and a red MAGA hat, but has a headphone set on, working with a military member, and then there's a surgical strike in Yemen.
Exactly, and then we're at what you would call the green area, kind of the tent set up, if you will, where press was separate from the actual golf club. And this is all part of the motorcade, but you're monitoring this as the day's going on, because it might be at a moment's notice that the president wants to say something about this. So he literally went off the golf course and ordered the strikes. He was there, of course, with Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor, and of course our great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, as well. So doing what the generals recommended, and that is striking Houthi targets within Yemen. This has been a big problem for the trade routes as well, because during the Biden administration, especially, these Houthi rebels blocking international trade from happening and really affecting world markets. That's a large way of how they terrorize different Western nations, is creating these threats.
It seems as if press briefings, because the State Department was just holding that. Robert and I were watching some of that. And prior to that, of course, was the White House press briefing with Carolyn Leavitt, Tammy Bruce, the spokesperson with the State Department, and then now we'll be going to the Pentagon. So who knows if maybe on Mondays there'll be the trifecta of press conferences to start the week to really inform the media and the people on what the heck's going on out there.
Well, and that's what we were reminded of this past weekend, is that President Trump truly is, in Caroline Leavitt's words, the best spokesperson for this White House and administration, and the most transparent. I mean, he came to the back of the plane to make comments and to take questions. And if it wasn't for a little bit of turbulence, our 10-minute conversation really became a press conference, probably would have gone on longer, because, and this is, mind you, a quarter to midnight. I mean, the man is nonstop. The energy is incredible. And at 78 years young, there's no stopping him from protecting the American people.
It's great. It was awesome to see that coverage here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Moving forward, we're talking the southern border as well, because the DOD, I mean, they're the ones that are down there in a way too, the military down along the southern border. Just last month, actually, the Secretary of the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, actually traveled down there. So seeing all of these operations happen, whether it's domestically or if in some cases foreign,
right?
President Trump, to the point of, you were at the Commander-in-Chief ball, I believe, yes, when he said he wants to make a military so strong, the strongest ever, that he won't even have to use it.
Exactly, and they were so excited to see. It was great to see veterans and active military members so thrilled to have their Commander-in-Chief back. Even South Korea Command, the Central Command there, who's really at the demilitarized zone, where President Trump famously walked over at the welcoming of Kim Jong-un, remember Little Rocket Man, and of course the diplomacy that everyone said would fail ended up being a huge success, because both leaders willing to talk. Very different, but President Trump implemented that with the appropriate letters. And these people, Central Command, who sacrificed so much being away from families in South Korea on that side of the DMZ, saying, Mr. President, welcome back, our 47th Commander-in-Chief. So it was a very inspiring ball to be a part of. And of course, he had the saber to cut the cake, so that was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a great time. I mean, that was, can you believe it, 56 days ago. It feels like it's 5 years ago.
Where is the year going? And it's wonderful to see springing up and even coming back here to beautiful Auburn, Alabama, the friendliest village on the plains. Pollen is already hitting this. And of course, I have a black car, so you can really see it down south. But amazing to go through the different climates as winter is turning into spring in the next few days.
You were talking about the different state signs, the free state of Florida, and then my mind on Georgia, right? Is that what it is?
Right. And George, we're glad Georgia's on your mind. Like, of course, the famous Ray Charles song, of course, here, Alabama, Sweet Home Alabama.
Exactly. That's the point I was going to make. You can't forget about Sweet Home Alabama. All right. So 2:40 right now here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're actually going to throw to a video that is from the Department of Defense. This is all about the southern border. Now, we know that this press conference most likely is going to be about that surgical strike with the Houthis rebels, but you know, there's the press there, so I'm sure other topics will come up. Maybe there'll be some videos playing on that screen that you see at the Pentagon. But let's go to the video of the southern border. This is within the past couple months where Pete Hegseth was touring the border and meeting with troops down there. And also, we're about to watch Marines and Army and some National Guard really secure the southern border. So this is the work of the Pentagon in a way with the Department of Defense. Take a look.
Morning, sir. Sergeant Captain. That's what's good. I'm blessed.
Yeah, I'd rather do it out here.
He is a part of the task force logistics cell.
Sir, Henry Dixon again, Commander, Task Force.
You're at the border, and based on the data and everything we're seeing on paper, you have everything you need to conduct the mission. So that's something we're going to do everywhere we go. Is talk.
Stop me. I'm stopping there today, and I have to work that cat tail with it. So, yeah. Nah.
Great photo.
And of course, the outstanding work of our Marines, our United States Army Corps of Engineers, and Border Patrol agents all working in tandem with the great Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, someone who's been to the border multiple times now, much more than the border czar, former Vice President Kamala Harris during her tenure. And how exciting, just a couple of days ago now, Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, explaining that 7 more miles of wall will be unveiled and brought about over the course of the next few weeks. And we know that crossings have been way, way down. I mean, it's almost a completely secure, cut off southern border. You just don't see getaways. You don't see people attempting to go over that. And we were just talking off air. What if you tried to get over that 10 to 13 foot hump, and then on the other side, really sharp barbed wire? Not a good idea.
And on top of that, a military right there reinforcing all of that. So yeah, it's great to see that video. It really just shows the actions speaking louder than the words. President Trump said we're going to seal the border. Well, you're seeing it be done. And you see the 94 to 96% drop in the amount of crossings happening. So great to see that. Before we go there live to the Pentagon at any minute, let's go to Colonial Metals Group. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN, you get that free info kit.
Yes, and it's a no obligation, great kit to look at, whether you scan that QR code or go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Colonial Metals Group, we have Paul Stone on regularly, and he is an expert at these beautiful options in gold and silver, really a hedge against inflation ultimately. And whether it's sending your student to a great university like Auburn University or preparing for your retirement, do the thing that the rich people are doing, like a Warren Buffett. Regardless of political opinion, there's a reason why he's putting his money where he's putting it. And gold and silver has truly stood the test of time.
freegoldguide.com/RSBN, tax sheltered IRA, 401k, all backed in gold and silver. All right, so it's 2:45. This is about the time that the Pentagon will be starting. The Air Force Lieutenant General Alexis Grenoquich, the Director of Operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Chief Pentagon Spokesman Sean Parnell will be briefing the media there. We'll go to that live. This is on the heels of the White House press conference earlier. And Carolyn, again, standing up there, batting 1,000. As you've said before,
yes.
I've said it's a grand slam home run. That's what's happening.
Well, and it's great to see a packed James Brady press room of the new media coming in to ask their very good, very solid questions. And even over this weekend, the questions are getting better on the part of most media because you have this influx of podcasters, of live desks like us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, or those who have used their skills in order to get the information out to you, the American people. No longer do you have to go to a corporate entity to get all of your facts, as I like to put it in quotations, because as we've seen over the last decade of President Trump being involved in American politics at such an elite level, we've seen a lot of fake news out there, or people put out stories wanting it to be their opinion, but saying it's actual fact and confusing people in that process. And that's just been a detriment to the American people.
It's such a detriment, when you have that false narrative and the left wing just lying. So this is what's great about the people like Sean Parnell, who you're going to see here, and Tammy Bruce at the State Department, Carolyn Leavitt at the White House. You have people that are on point. They aren't woke. They stand for we the people as well. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you think of President Trump and you think of, the vice president and the cabinet leaders, that they stand for us, but these spokespeople are standing for us.
Well, and we were talking about in between shows today how these people are not only subject matter experts in their fields, this cabinet, these undersecretaries, but they're also very well trained in media, and how great that is for President Trump to help spread the message. He's a juggernaut in and of himself, speaking to the media so transparently, so often. You can get what we call a press gaggle, or even a hit on a regular basis with this president because he is so transparent. He wants to talk to us. He talked to us last night, in fact. But you look at people like Pete Hegseth and Tammy Bruce and Sean Parnell and many others in this administration that left very lucrative, big television shows and different networks to come serve their country. And it's extraordinary. I mean, they are really great advocates, not only for this administration, but for the truth. And very grateful to have them serving the American people.
It's wonderful to see it as we await the Pentagon press briefing. This may be the first press briefing of the administration here. So looking forward to seeing that there by the chief spokesman, Sean Parnell, and again, the Air Force Lieutenant General, the Director of Operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, will be there. This will be quite interesting to hear whatever questions are asked, but also any updates on surgical strikes. And maybe there'll be questions about the drug cartels being a terrorist organization. I mean, what would happen there? Could something happen there? So it's all, we're monitoring this. This is all like in real time. And Robert, as we take that 30,000 foot view, isn't it wild to see the time of life that we're living in right now?
Oh, it's amazing because, again, I've mentioned it before, but everyone's got one of these things. So that gives you the opportunity to become a citizen journalist, to hit record and see what's going on in real time. And President Trump, so much what he wanted to do when he came down the golden escalator with our outstanding and beautiful First Lady, Melania Trump, was literally to help shape the country and say, I could do this better. At the time, he said these are just stupid deals. I think he still believes that, things like NAFTA. But then he realized the globalists really were putting themselves before the American people. And that was members of the Republican and Democrat parties. He is truly the MAGA lion, the populist hero who said, I'm going to fight for the middle class and common sense. And first and foremost, we're going to seal our borders, secure that, stop fentanyl, stop the murders, and really enforce the laws so preventable crime really does not happen. In turn, let's get our manufacturing back. Let's be good to our farmers. Oh, and by the way, why don't we get the toxins out of our food and truly have free and fair trade again in this country to benefit the middle class? It's just common sense at the end of the day. And I think in doing so, he pulled that curtain back. And I remember that press conference he had, I want to say it was before COVID, back in 2019. He said, I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was this bad. And that's why I think you've seen such swift action in nearly 60 days of a new administration.
It's been wild. We've been covering it. And usually, you know, it's the first 100 days that you examine. He did more in one day than other presidents have done in 100. Literally. It's one 24-hour time period. I'm looking here at the Department of Defense X account, and they reposted something from the U.S. Central Command. And we've been talking about the Houthi rebel situation with the surgical strike. But CENTCOM also, the CENTCOM forces kill ISIS chief of global operations who also served as ISIS #2. So basically what we're told is, in cooperation with the Iraqi intelligence and security forces, conducted a precision airstrike in the Al-Anbar province in Iraq that killed the global ISIS #2 leader. So you're seeing these specific things happening to take away any kind of threat that may harm people out there, but also here at home.
Yes, exactly. And that's really working with our partners, working with the generals, as President Trump said, putting those real generals into place. And I think this will be truly the introduction of the new chief of staff of the armed forces. That is, of course, General Raisin Kane that we hear so much about. Remember the great rally speeches of, I said, Raisin, I came in there, and this is what we have to do. And this was the gentleman who really was responsible for getting rid of ISIS in the first term. Exactly. He said, sir, this is what we have to do. These are not good people. And President Trump said, if you remember these famous speeches over the last couple of years, do I really have to do this? And the Moab was designed, the mother of all bombs. Really amazing technology because it's the precision strikes that found many of these savages hiding within the mountains and within these remote areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan and throughout the Middle East, Syria especially. And they were able to find them and within 3 months completely obliterate the ISIS caliphate, something Barack Obama was not able to do nor willing to do. And then with Joe Biden, we saw a resurgence of radical Islamic terrorism. And sadly, I think we had forgotten about 9/11 in so many ways during the last 4 years that I always had in the back of my head, God forbid they tried something again like we've seen around the world.
The thing that you're not hearing from us is anything about being pro-war or getting into other conflicts. This is more specific on surgical strikes against known enemies to people and that have killed people. So this has nothing to do with wanting to start a war. That's not what we're about here. Mm-hmm. And that's not what President Trump's about. As you guys know, no new wars started under his first administration, not starting any wars here in the second one. So we'll be getting an update from the Pentagon here shortly. And again, the spokesperson, the chief Pentagon spokesperson, Sean Parnell, will be joined by an Air Force Lieutenant General Alexis Grinkenowicz, the Director of Operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And the reason why I bring up him again is because Air Force. You were on Air Force One, and what was that like? You saw Marine One, I believe. Well, actually, you were over at Joint Base. So you saw Marine One. You saw them land and all that. What was that like? Just the military aspect of everything.
It always gives me goosebumps. Just it's such a proud moment for our country, and specifically these Marines, and also the Air Force staff who look over these wonderful vehicles that protect our president in the sky and bring him safely and comfortably to each location where he needs to diplomatically look to his agenda. You know, even simply now, for the most part, it's been mostly the travel between the White House and our southern White House, Mar-a-Lago. But it's their precision, it's their dedication, it's the values of God, country, family, putting those above themselves. And it's wonderful to have a commander-in-chief who recognizes that and that clear respect between the branches and their top commander. It is on vivid display. And just the hospitality, because it is fun when you go there. It's Secret Service screens you first, actually on many occasions. I think we went through the entire weekend, probably 24 at least different screenings.
Wow.
So that's again why I want to mention with the whole situation, as we mentioned in the last broadcast, there was a mic incident from a colleague. It was an absolute honest mistake. She was terribly mortified from what took place. It ended up being somewhat of a fun joke later on, but those who commented when they saw the reels, whether it be on my social media or other Twitter sphere or from other commenters on X, really there was no malintent. It was, she said, "I'm very sorry, Mr. President," and everyone was in shock for a moment because you don't expect that, but mistakes happen on the job. Everything is so really precise down to the second, and you go through Secret Service, who all business, then you go to the Air Force, still all business, but again, welcoming you to Air Force One. And then, of course, when you have the chief ushers, who are just extraordinary. I mean, they have the emblem of the presidential seal, as well as, what drink can we get you? And it's really quite the hospitality in the sky. So an experience I'll never forget. And thank you again to President Trump, his staff, for giving Right Side Broadcasting Network the opportunity. But that's what this entire administration is about. WhiteHouse.gov/new media. Go and apply. If you're a podcaster, you might end up sitting in that special chair and get that first question out at a Caroline Levitt presser.
It's all about everyday America, and that's what is awesome. President Trump and the team has always highlighted everyday Americans, whether it was at the RNC or at the inauguration, wherever. It's just that's what he does, and that's what the team does. Talk to us about some of the questions that you asked the president when it was prior to the trip from Joint Base down, and then also last night on the way back up.
Yeah, so we will also share these on social media once again if you did not catch them. But we were fortunate enough to get some questions in regarding tariffs especially. I was hoping President Trump would really dive into, and he did, regarding how tariffs will be financially beneficial for the United States, because Australia recently announced with the Prime Minister saying that there will be no reciprocal tariffs back in the United States direction. Now, every country is going to do what's best for themselves, and that makes sense. They should put their countries first. But as President Trump mentioned when I asked the question about the benefits of tariffs and the United States government using that, so that's how China makes money, that's how Canada makes money, that's how many of the European countries make money and take advantage of the United States. And as he mentioned, we just didn't have leaders who knew what the hell they were doing, and whether that be Republican presidents or Democrat presidents. And that's, I think, the biggest difference between the common sense wherewithal, the know-how, someone who knows money, as he said when he ran against crooked Hillary Clinton. It's about time this country chooses someone who knows something about money. His living predecessors do not. In fact, it's becoming, I think, more and more aware as each day goes by that his living predecessors had a globalist agenda. We even had George W. Bush talking about the other day, it's all about these isms lately, nativism, this and that. And he, in other words, called the American people racist. And I thought, well, that's really lousy. And then I commented, and I usually don't do this on social media, what about globalism?
Yeah.
I wanted the answer to that. But then we also asked President Trump yesterday as well, getting to the auto pen question of former President Biden, because clearly the signature he was writing when you'd see him sign something, much different than the printed one. And President Trump's is the exact same. So I simply asked, do you think those are null and void, whether it's pardons, whether it's commutations, whether it's any executive order? And we know President Trump got rid of at least 80 of those illegal executive orders on the part of Joe Biden immediately after he became president, just a few short hours after that. But we're going to toss it right there live to the Pentagon. Okay, and then where he's there, we'll get right back to that. But those are the things I was really trying to go after, and President Trump very transparent about that. You might have caught on True Social as well. He had his portraits mixed with the auto pen. And then also he put out a lengthy statement on True Social after I did ask him that question. So an exciting time.
So this may be, I have no idea where this is. I mean, yeah, they're having some obviously technical difficulties. I mean, at the end of the day, though, all right. So what we're seeing on the left side of your screen is possibly the Kennedy Center behind the scenes there. But let's go to the Pentagon press conference. We'll play you the president if we get that. All right, let's go.
This weekend now seemed as appropriate time as any to fulfill that obligation to all of you. Additionally, I'm glad to be joined by Lieutenant General Alex Grinkovich, affectionately known as Grinch. Now, despite his call sign, he's actually a very pleasant and delightful human being, and we're glad to have him here at this podium. He's the Director of Operations of the Joint Staff. He's going to be able to provide a much richer context on the ongoing series of U.S. military operations against the Iranian-backed Houthi terrorists in Yemen. So thank you for joining me, General.
Thank you, sir.
As many of you all know, we had an election back in November, and as a result of that election, an overwhelming mandate from the American people, there's a new president in the White House, and that, of course, is our president, President Donald Trump, who has immediately gotten to work on his America First agenda for the Department of Defense. Among those are 4 top-line points that I think are very important for those in this room to understand. Those are protecting the U.S. homeland, deterring China, and maintaining the ability to strike America's enemies anywhere in the world, and then also asking our allies to do more. We all know that this is a tall task, to be sure. So President Trump knew we needed a certain type of leader to bring the department into the 21st century, and he found that leader in now Secretary Pete Hegseth. So in less than 2 months, Secretary Hegseth has taken monumental steps to return the Department of Defense to its core mission, which is warfighting, lethality, meritocracy. In a very, very short amount of time, Secretary Hegseth has restored the warrior ethos. He's declared DEI dead at the DoD. He's made the sovereignty of our borders a matter of national security. And we are refocused on training, fitness, and high standards across the board here in the Department of Defense. So before we get into our updates today, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say that this Department of Defense is committed to achieving our mission of maintaining the greatest fighting force the world has ever known, and returning the Department of Defense back to the American warfighter and making it more transparent to the American taxpayer. So starting out, as I'm sure you've all seen over the weekend, U.S. Central Command Forces initiated a series of operations consisting of precision strikes against Iran-backed Houthi targets across Yemen to restore freedom of navigation and reestablish American deterrence. For years, the Houthis have targeted U.S. military ships and aircraft. They've hit commercial ships as well, including U.S. flagged vessels, and they threaten our personnel overseas. Houthi terrorists have launched missiles, one-way attack drones at U.S. warships over 170 times, and at commercial vessels 145 times since 2003. I know what it's like to be in a situation when you're under fire by the enemy. Your life is at risk. The life of your friends and your battle buddies is at risk, and you're prohibited from returning fire. That's a hellish situation that I wouldn't wish on my worst adversary. It's a tough position that we put America's sons and daughters in. Under President Trump and Secretary Hegseth's leadership, we will defend our sons and daughters. If you shoot at American troops, there will be consequences. As President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made clear, these actions by the Houthis will not be tolerated. In his first 2 days back at the White House, President Trump signed an order laying out a process to redesignate the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization after the previous administration revoked their designation within weeks of taking office. Under the previous administration, America's enemies were emboldened and billions in frozen funds were unlocked for Iran. With President Trump and Secretary Hegseth's leadership, an era of peace through strength is back. We will use overwhelming lethal force until we have achieved our objective. With that said, and this is a very important point, this is also not an endless offensive. This is not about regime change in the Middle East. This is about putting American interests first. As I said over the weekend, there is a very clear end state to this operation. And that begins the moment that the Houthis pledge to stop attacking our ships and putting American lives at risk. Shifting focus to Africa, at the request of the federal government of Somalia, U.S. Africa Command Forces conducted collective self-defense airstrikes against al-Shabaab on March 15th. The airstrikes occurred about 150 kilometers northeast of Mogadishu, Somalia, and AFRICOM's initial assessment is that enemy combatants were killed and that no civilians were injured or killed. And so U.S. forces will continue to partner with Somali armed forces to take the fight to these terrorists and degrade their ability to plan and conduct attacks that threaten the U.S. homeland, our forces, and civilians abroad. Now on to Homeland Defense. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have been very, very clear that border security is national security. We spent decades defending foreign nations' borders while our own U.S. borders has been invaded by criminal illegal aliens, human smugglers, drug traffickers, and transnational gangs. The Department of Defense is proud to defend our homeland and the territorial sovereignty of the United States. Although we've seen a 93% decrease in illegal border crossings, we will not stop until we have 100% operational control of our southern border. And over the weekend, Joint Task Force Southern Border assumed the mission from Joint Task Force North and reached initial operating capacity. Additionally, U.S. Northern Command announced on Saturday that the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, the USS Gravely, departed Naval Weapons Stations Yorktown for a scheduled deployment to the Gulf of America. We're actually making some history from the podium today. It's the first time we've recognized the Gulf of America in the Pentagon press briefing room, which is kind of cool. So it's not only vital for the United States to have control of our border via land, it's equally important to control our territorial waters. And this deployment directly supports U.S. Northern Command's mission to protect our sovereignty. And lastly, Secretary Hegseth spoke with Qatari Minister of State for Defense Affairs, His Excellency Sheikh Saud Al Thani, to discuss operations to eliminate the Houthi threat to American commerce and restore American freedom of navigation. The Secretary acknowledged Qatar's strong partnership in addressing shared security challenges across the region, including Syria and the Red Sea. And with that, I'll turn it over to my counterpart, Grinch, for some more opening comments on CENTCOM strikes. General, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the opportunity to provide you a brief operational update on our operations against the Houthis. On Saturday, the 15th of March, shortly after 1 p.m. Eastern Time, at the direction of the President, U.S. Central Command began precision strike operations against the Houthis to restore freedom of navigation and American deterrence. The initial wave of strikes hit over 30 targets at multiple locations, degrading a variety of Houthi capabilities. These included terrorist training sites, unmanned aerial vehicle infrastructure, weapons manufacturing capabilities, and weapons storage facilities. It also included a number of command and control centers, including a terrorist compound where we know several senior Houthi unmanned aerial vehicle experts were located. On Sunday, strike operations continued against additional headquarters locations, weapons storage facilities, as well as detection capabilities that have been used to threaten maritime shipping in the past. Today, the operation continues, and it will continue in the coming days until we achieve the President's objectives. Thanks, and I look forward to your questions.
And with that, in this very crowded briefing room, I'll take some of your questions. And the first, I'll go to Logan from Newsmax.
Sean, thank you for taking my question. This really is for both of you. A question about the Bashat. That's Iran's spy ship that has been directing the Houthis throughout this conflict. Is it still operating in support of the Houthis? If so, do you know where it is?
General, turn it over to you to address that.
Sure. We know that the Iranians have provided a variety of assistance to the Houthis over the years, including some suspected intelligence. We do know that some had previously come from the Bashad. The Bashad is not currently being used for those operations, but we do know that other vessels are contemplated for those sorts of operations, so we're watching very closely to see if they return to the AO.
I would also say that, when you look at how the previous administration conducted business with Iran, they really empowered Iran to fund and export terror all around the world, whether it's with Hezbollah, Hamas, specifically with the Houthis. I mean, it's very clear. I think President Trump has made it very clear that he's put Iran on notice. I mean, I'm sure that you saw his tweet today that essentially saying, and I'm paraphrasing, that any shot fired at U.S. forces by the Houthis would be considered a shot from Iran. And this is the president showcasing leadership from the Oval Office and frankly, bringing moral clarity back to the United States of America. We know who the enemies of this country are and the enemies of a free world are. And President Trump has put them on notice, as you saw with Iran this morning. But okay. Gabby.
Thank you for taking my question. I wanted to run back to TDA and MS-13 deportations to El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center. Do we anticipate to renew that partnership as it will conclude after 1 year? If yes, what does that look like from a cost perspective? And how is Guantanamo Bay factored into dealing with criminal aliens and terrorists, considering this new Pentagon is more focused on securing the border?
Well, that's a great question. So I think part of your question about El Salvador should be referred to the State Department. But I'll say that the Department of Defense is proud to defend our homeland and our sovereignty in helping to deport transnational criminal organizations like Tren de Agua. We're proud to support that mission. I don't know, General, do you have anything to offer about Guantanamo Bay and our force posture there?
Sure. I just had a couple of things for you, Gabby. We do continue to have a substantial presence at Guantanamo Bay to ensure that we're ready to receive any illegal aliens that the Department of Homeland Security would like to send there. We're monitoring their requirements closely, and we're in daily contact with them to make sure that we can meet them to the best of our ability.
Tom?
Sean, if the Iranian ships are operational, start helping the Houthis, will they be targeted? And for the general, any sense of number of military casualties so far and any civilian casualties in Yemen?
Well, that's a great question, General. If you'll permit me to answer.
Sure, go ahead.
So I think that I certainly don't want to get out in front of the Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary as it pertains to clearance of strikes and who will be targeted. But I think the President's made very clear that all options are on the table.
Yeah, Tom, just on your question of casualties, military casualties, we have some initial estimates. I hesitate to say what they are because they're very much estimates at this point, but I think in terms of dozens might be a safe overall characterization.
Dozens of military?
Yeah, dozens of military casualties so far, but I really can't characterize it much better than that at this point. We'll learn more as we go. On the civilian casualty side, no indications of any civilian casualties. We, of course, have seen some of the accusations by the Houthis. We look at those closely when they do come in, but we have no credible indications of any civilian casualties.
And I'd like to add to what General Grinch said. Anytime you're close to an operation like this, having been in combat front towards enemy before, the fog of war is a real thing. So before we announce something here from the podium, we're going to make sure that we get it right. And I think part of that is just taking the time to evaluate and doing a proper battle damage, BDA battle damage assessment, sensitive site exploitation. And frankly, that stuff just takes time. And so before we make any sort of those announcements, we're going to do a real hard look and make sure that we get it right before we announce it to you. Charlie from CBS.
Yes, thank you, Sean.
Changing the subject slightly. Is the DoD considering rescheduling the performance of young musicians in the Marine Band that was canceled because of the anti-DEI executive order? And in a broader sense, is there a concern that anti-DEI initiatives may have a negative impact on recruitment?
Well, I think the President and the Secretary have been very clear on this, that anybody that says in the Department of Defense that diversity is our strength is frankly incorrect. our shared purpose and unity are our strength. And I say this as somebody who led a combat platoon in Afghanistan that was probably the most diverse platoon that you could possibly imagine. I mean, we had black serving next to white, Christians serving next to atheists, Northerners next to Southerners, and yes, Democrats and Republicans in the very same foxhole. But the reason why we were so lethal in Afghanistan, and again, my platoon took an 85% casualty rate over 485 days, but part of the reason why we were able to accomplish the mission and the commander's intent was because we put aside our many differences as Americans. There were no hyphenated Americans with us in that isolated hilltop in the border region of Afghanistan. We were all just Americans. And really, when you talk about America's greatest strength, yes, we've got, I'm sure the general can attest, yes, we've got lots of cool, sexy equipment and lots of exceptional military training. I think it helps set us apart from everybody else. But what makes us exceptional fighters on the battlefield is our ability to put aside our many differences and unite under a common banner as Americans. I mean, for goodness sake, when we put aside our many differences as Americans, we went to the moon with less technology than many of you all have in your pockets and your cell phones right now. We're talking about a force that stormed the beaches of Normandy, scaled the cliffs at Pointe du Hoc, fought through hedgerows and beat back the Nazi war machine and saved the world when we put aside our many differences as Americans. And I know President Trump understands that our focus on unity and shared purpose is what makes us lethal, and so does Secretary Hegseth. So their guidance has been clear on this, and we're going to continue to focus on that guidance.
In terms of the concert, are you thinking about rescheduling that?
I don't think I'll have to take that question for you. I don't have an answer for you, but we'll get back to you on that. Oh, let's go to the phones. I'm getting a signal. We should go to the phones. Okay, we got JJ Green on the line from WTOP.
Hey, Sean, thank you for doing this. Question about Ukraine. Can you assess how the U.S. military, assess the status of U.S. military aid to Ukraine and the intelligence sharing, how that's going since it was disrupted maybe a week or so ago, and then restarted? What's being shared? What's being given? What's happening with that?
Well, I can tell you that U.S. military aid to Ukraine has been turned back on, as well as intelligence sharing with our Ukrainian partners. But I'll tell you this. The president has been very clear since his time on the campaign trail that his focus with the war in Ukraine is bringing about peace and putting a distinct focus on peace and really to stop the dying. And so President Trump, along with his national security team, have been heavily involved in, along with Secretary Hegseth as well, heavily involved with Ukraine and Russia to try to broker that peace, understanding that there will likely be difficult conversations to be had on both sides when you're talking about, the release of hostages, when you're talking about potential ceasefire agreements, when you're talking about territory. As someone who's negotiated with some tough people on the battlefield, I can tell you it's a tough, imperfect, nuanced, and complicated process. And President Trump and Secretary Hegseth certainly understand that, with on the forefront of their mind peace as their first and foremost priority. General, do you have anything to add?
No, I would just echo what you said, sir, which is, the status of U.S. military aid, it has been turned back on. We've got confirmed reports that it is continuing or is flowing back into Ukraine. And, of course, daily reports on the outcome of the intelligence sharing and those efforts. So all of that is as it was previously.
So I'm going to stick with the phones here just a second. I got Christina from Breitbart on the phones. Do I understand that?
Yes, thanks so much for doing that, Sean. Two questions. After U.S. strikes against the Houthis on Saturday, the Houthis fired drones and missiles at the Truman. Will there be a response to those attacks? And secondly, the Pentagon has deployed the USS Gravely. And can you tell us a little bit about what it will be doing there, exactly what its mission will be?
So I guess I'll address the first part of your question first, Christina, and General, I'll let you chime in. the question of the Houthis. I mean, what was? Remind me what the first part of your question was, Christina.
Will there be a response to the Houthi attacks on the Truman?
It was that I got you. So, first of all, we did get reports of the Houthis firing ballistic missiles and some one-way attack drones against U.S. forces in the region. Those attacks were largely ineffective and didn't come anywhere near U.S. forces in the region. Again, the commanders in command of those vessels were, they were completely on point with regards to defending. They were not effective attacks. And so I would also say the second part, the answer to the second part of that question is that the response is ongoing. I mean, this isn't, there's going to be, as I mentioned, a very clear end state to this. And I think a lot of that has to do with how the Houthis respond. Firing at U.S. military personnel in the region and shooting at our ships and shooting at our drones and putting American lives at risk is not a good way to end this conflict. The Houthis could stop this tomorrow if they said, we're going to stop shooting at your people. But they've clearly chosen not to do that. And so this campaign will be relentless to degrade their capability and to open up shipping lanes in the region and to defend our homeland. But General,
thanks, Sean. The only thing I would add is, the Houthis claim to have tried to attack the Harry S. Truman. Quite frankly, it's hard to tell because while we're executing precision strikes, they missed by over 100 miles. So I would just tell you their effectiveness. I would question anything that they claim in the press that they're doing or not doing. It's very hard to tell what they are just based on their level of incompetence that they've demonstrated so far.
Sorry, the missile missed by 100 miles?
Yes, that's correct. There's also been a number of other attempts to interdict vessels in the Red Sea using UAVs and some cruise missiles as well. All of those have been easily defeated by our fighter aircraft that are there.
General Grinch throwing shade at the Houthis from the podium. I love it.
Some of the folks in here know that my previous job I dealt with the Houthis quite a bit.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Happy to throw shade at them. On the question about the USS Gravely that you had, Christina, so she's deploying under General Guillot, the commander of U.S. Northern Command's authorities for maritime homeland defense missions. She'll go down, as Sean mentioned, into the Gulf of America and surrounding areas and be involved in the interdiction mission for any of the drugs and whatnot that are heading in. It'll be partnered very closely with the United States Coast Guard. So we won't share, of course, her actual scheme of maneuver here, but know that that's the mission that she's going down there for, and we look forward to seeing what she can do.
And on that point about the USS Gravely, I think it's really important that the president and the secretary have made very clear 100% operational control of our southern border. I mean, we've got probably close to 10,000 troops on our southern border. We're surging a Stryker Brigade combat team down there to reinforce the land border as well. But there's a sea component to this as well, and that's part of the mission of the USS Gravely is to secure the water routes in defense of our southern border. And so, Aaron, Daily Caller.
Thank you, Sean. Will the Department of Defense commit to firing or otherwise disciplining any remaining leadership that were directly involved in the Afghanistan withdrawal?
So we're in the process of figuring out what that investigation will look like. But I'll tell you, as somebody who served in Afghanistan and watched that unfold, I mean, I was horrified in a lot of ways. You think about how much time and blood and treasure and American life that was lost in Afghanistan over 20 years. You think about that for a second. I'm 43 years old. This country was at war in Afghanistan for 20 years. So almost half of my life, this country was at war in Afghanistan. And I personally watched, the men in my platoon, but also my larger brigade combat team, which was a part of the 10th Mountain Division, 3rd Brigade. We bled the ground red in Afghanistan. And I watched my men do extraordinary things in support of a grateful nation and in support of the mission there. And to watch Afghanistan be surrendered in the way that it was extremely difficult. And I think something that President Trump and Secretary Hegseth really understand is that when America makes a decision to get involved in any conflict, we have a moral obligation to have a clear-cut end state to what that operation looks like, a clear exit strategy to what that operation looks like, and to make sure that victory is clearly defined. And I think in Iraq and certainly in Afghanistan over the last 20-some years, think maybe we've struggled a little bit with those finer points, but I'll say that the President Trump and Secretary Hegseth, they understand that when America gets involved in a fight, it's our job to also end that fight as fast as humanly possible, because we have a moral obligation to win and win decisively. Otherwise, you're going to have an entire generation of American warriors wondering what the hell it was all for. And I know that every day I wake up and I draw breath, I think about the men who I served with, who were my friends, who never came home from that fight. I've lost 30 friends in my support of the Afghan war, 30. And you ask yourself, you look yourself in the mirror, you ask yourself, what do we have to show for it? Not a whole lot. And so to your question of will people be held accountable, I think we have an obligation both to the American people and to the American warfighters who fought in Afghanistan to hold the leadership accountable in some way. Now, we don't know what that looks like right now, but to hold the leadership that was in charge of the Afghan withdrawal accountable. Because, look, if you have a private that loses a sensitive item, that loses night vision goggles, that loses a weapon, you can bet that that private is going to be held accountable. The same and equal standards must apply to senior military leaders. So,
I just want to follow up on what you just said.
Sure.
You said that there needs to be a clear end state. And I know the goal is to have the Houthis stop their attacks, but what is the end state? What happens if the Houthis don't stop their attacks or don't agree to say they'll stop their attacks? It doesn't seem like there is a clear end state, that this could just go on and on.
Well, in fairness, I mean, it's a great question, but in fairness, the operation's only been going on for 48 hours. And the President and Secretary have been very clear on this, that the Houthis can determine when this ends. And until then, the campaign will be unrelenting until we, one, protect our homeland, and two, open up the shipping lanes there, so make sure that we have freedom of maneuver in that area. But General, you have something that...
I mean, what I might add is, while we won't talk about it publicly, just know that there is a design to the operation. There are specific effects that we're trying to achieve, and there are specific targets that have been selected and approaches that we're taking in order to achieve the president's end state. So it isn't that we're just striking capabilities. There's an intent behind every strike and every target that we go after.
To that point, you mentioned that this is not like it was before. So what is different about the targeting that you're doing this time that wasn't true under the Biden administration?
Yeah, I give the short answer to that, and without going into too many operational details for security reasons, but it's a much broader set of targets that we've been able to action in this case. And the other key differences are the delegation of authorities from the President through Secretary Hegseth down to the operational commander. So that allows us to achieve a tempo of operations where we can react to opportunities that we see on the battlefield in order to continue to put pressure on the Houthis.
Thank you very much. Will this operation include sending ground troops into Yemen? If so, how do you achieve your objective of making them say enough without sending ground troops?
Well, I'll tell you, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for us to talk about force posture from this podium, because as a commander who's been on the battlefield, it's very, very important to keep the enemy guessing, keep your adversaries guessing. Now, that's not to say that we've got ground troops in Yemen. That's not to say that we're sending ground troops in, but it's difficult to talk about that stuff for operational security reasons from the podium. But General, you have anything to add?
No, nothing to add to that. Okay. I think that's exactly right.
Sean, can I follow up on that? You said that one of the things that you were waiting to do for the BDA was sensitive site exploitation. Does that include U.S. boots on the ground or any kind of American personnel on the ground to do that?
I can't talk about that stuff from the podium. But we have ways of conducting sensitive site exploitations without ground troops on the ground.
Yeah, it does not always require boots on the ground, and I'll just leave it at that.
So, can I also ask you about if there's any U.S. military assessment? I know that you're still on, the BDA is ongoing, but is there any military assessment about how much of the Houthis' capabilities were degraded by these first couple of rounds? And can you say anything? The President's Truth Social mentioned going after leaders, which seems to be one of the things that's different here. Can you say anything about any of the leaders that were targeted here?
Yeah, on the second part of the question, I'll just go to my opening statement where I mentioned that there was a unmanned aerial vehicle facility that was struck with several key leaders. Those were key individuals who led their unmanned aerial vehicle enterprise and were some of the technical experts in there. So think those types of individuals that we might be targeting as part of the command and control.
And so we have destroyed command and control facilities, weapons manufacturing facilities, and advanced weapons storage locations. But again, this campaign is ongoing. It's difficult to talk about all this stuff from the podium, and we're not going to say anything from the podium until we're 100% sure that we have it right. I got time for one more question.
You mentioned the President's Truth Social. Is the U.S. military considering military options for Iran?
I don't want to get out in front of the President or the Secretary, but clearly, I mean, I think the President's Truth Social was pretty clear, and I think the meaning is right there for everybody. I mean, I think everybody understands what he means. I don't want to get out in front of the President, but all options are on the table at this time. That's all I got.
One clarification for General. You said 30 targets. Is that over all 3 days?
No, that was on the first day. And it was over 30 targets, so not a specific number for you, but over 30 targets, multiple locations, and then additional targets today and additional targets yesterday on Sunday and additional targets today that obviously I won't go into because they're executing now.
So thank you, everybody. Listen, we're done. There will be more of these, I promise, but thank you. It was a great first press briefing. Really appreciate you all and your commitment to telling the story of the warfighters, but thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Well, there you go. Bottom of the hour, 3:30. And the Pentagon, they don't waste time. They turn off the lights right away. They're efficient in every way, it seems.
They really are, especially under the leadership of Pete Hegseth. Of course, Sean Parnell also stating this as his fellow war fighters. Don't you love that terminology? They really understand the meritocracy and the great tradition of America's fighting force to become the most lethal in all branches of government against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It is not a test tube for DEI and the multiculturalism and everything that Barack Obama and Joe Biden did to weaken our military. President Trump bringing it back to, levels that have really been unseen in recent years. I mean, all the recruitment that's happening thanks to Pete Hegseth and streamlining the budgets. We know Doge has been in there as well, and I'm sure Elon Musk has more to announce regarding that. But talk about someone who's also helping to defend America with Space Force, that successful launch taking place on Friday as well, which will inevitably help us with international defense.
Exactly. So we see the strength with our military. President Trump again saying at the Commander-in-Chief Ball some 56 days ago after he was inaugurated, he said that he wants to have a military that's so strong that we won't even have to use it. Well, that's peace through strength right there. We see that happening. He is doing the surgical strikes here and there, but that, of course, taking out ISIS leaders and the Houthi rebels and the like. So thanks so much for watching this Pentagon live briefing. As you see the live White House there right now, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on this happy St. Patrick's Day right now. So so glad that you're with us. And we may be getting some video footage of the president from the Kennedy Center. If that comes through, we'll be able to air that. If not, we can always upload it as well.
Of course, the new chairman of the organization, so adding to his resume, not that he needs to by any means, but I'm excited about this too. I mean, that's how my career began as an artist in the arts, something I dearly love, whether it's stage or film, television as well. And this Kennedy Center having a huge influence over that. And President Trump, of course, a lover of those things as well. It's great to see a president who's so involved in the culture. He's someone who really examines things, wants to meet the best of the best, whether that be those who perform on stage or whether it be those who perform on a field. So we will toss that over now to President Trump and Rick Grinnell, of course, Caroline Levitt, you see there, and other staff members at the Kennedy Center. We'll go there now.
Thank you very much. We're here to have our first board meeting, Kennedy Center, and it's in tremendous disrepair. as is a lot of the rest of our country, most of it because of bad management. This is a shame what I've watched and witnessed. They spent a fortune, $250 million, and they built these rooms that nobody's going to use, rooms underground. And I've often wondered, what are the big cubes that they have outside that block the view? They're cubes with a door in them so that people can get down to rooms that nobody's going to use. And it's a shame. It's a shame. The other thing is we're going to have a little problem with some people that work here. We had Lee Greenwood wanted to sing a little song today, and because of the cost in the union structure, for him to sing a song just for the board, just a board meeting, it was going to cost $30,000. That doesn't sound too good. They wanted $30,000 to move a piano, so you can't have that. So we're going to fix it up. But it's really emblematic of our country. But the Kennedy Center, you look at the columns outside, you look at, I mean, they're supposed to be covered by something, whether it's marble or whatever, granite. They were never covered. They were painted. But bring it into more modern times, a lot of money's been given to it, and the money has not been properly spent. They built rooms underground with no windows, no nothing, that will not be used ever. You're not going to have people use them. It's such a waste of money, such a terrible waste, but we'll bring it back, we'll make it great again. But it is so much like what I'm witnessing in other places. We have open borders, we have men playing in women's sports. It's all the same thing. It's all the same mentality and thinking. So I'm very disappointed when I look around. The bottom line, it has tremendous potential, and we'll work with Congress. As you know, it's a very public facility, and we'll do what has to be done. We'll be having a meeting with the Speaker in the not-too-distant future. I think it's important to save this structure in this building. I think maybe we close up some of the work that's been done and built because it was done terribly. It was done terribly. The concept was very bad.
Mr. President, why was it so important for you to come here today to the Kennedy Center? You have so much on your plate. Why come today here?
This represents a very important part of D.C. and actually our country. And I think it's important to make sure that our country is in good shape and is represented well. When people look at this, I've been hearing for a long time that they come here and they're very disappointed. When they come here, I want them to be excited. We're bringing a big move on to Washington, D.C. We're going to stop the crime. We actually worked with the mayor. We took down a lot of tents. They were all over the place in front of the State Department, and they did a good job of that. I was very happy with what the mayor did. She was able to get them out quickly and at my direction and at the direction of the administration. But we're cleaning up Washington, D.C. This is a big part of Washington, D.C.
Mr. President, for Americans visiting Washington, perhaps they're thinking about seeing a show at the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
What would you tell them? They've never been here before and they want to come check it out?
Yeah, I'd say come here and see a show. I was never a big fan of, I never liked Hamilton very much, and I never liked it. But we are going to have some really good shows. I would say this, come here and watch it, and you'll see over a period of time it'll improve very greatly physically, and we're going to get some very good shows. The thing that does well are Broadway hits. And we have some beauty. I guess we have Les Mis coming, and we have some others, but the Broadway hits have done very well. So I'm going to spend some time. We have a good board. In the meantime, we're running the country, and we're running it well. We have tremendous things to report. Tomorrow I'm speaking with President Putin of Russia to save some soldiers who are in deep trouble. They're captured. Essentially, they're surrounded by Russian soldiers. So I give you a lot of different things in one news conference, but it's a big deal. They're surrounded by Russian soldiers, and I believe if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't be here any longer. I was able to get them not to do anything at this moment, but it's a bad situation in Russia, and it's a bad situation in Ukraine. What's happening in Ukraine is not good, but we're going to see if we can work a peace agreement, a ceasefire and peace, and I think we'll be able to do it. I'm speaking to President Putin tomorrow morning, yes. Yeah.
Do you think there was any effect of the pause on aid and intel to
No, not at all. No, really the opposite. I think it was appreciated, and we have to understand, and you have to understand, that if I see somebody doing something bad that's going to cause a lot of death, the only reason I'm involved, and this is Russia and Ukraine, but a lot of people, it's humanity. I'm involved for humanity. A lot of people are being killed over there, and we had to get Ukraine to do the right thing. It was not an easy situation. You got to see a little glimpse at the Oval Office. But I think they're doing the right thing right now, and we're trying to get a peace agreement done. We want to get a ceasefire and then a peace agreement. Who you with? So we're going to see how it all works out. This was Joe Biden's deal. This isn't Trump's deal. This is Joe Biden's deal. He gave $350 billion to Ukraine, and he shouldn't have done it. It wasn't secured. Europe gave $100 billion, and it was in the form of a loan. They get their money back. And they should actually have much more in it than us. But Joe Biden was grossly incompetent, and it's a shame what they did. $350 billion. We could have rebuilt our entire Navy for that kind of money.
Mr. President, sir, there were 18 Secret Service agents protecting Hunter Biden in South Africa this weekend. Who's paying for that, and do you plan to revoke the Secret Service protection?
Well, we have done that with many. I would say if there are 18 with Hunter Biden, that will be something I'll look at this afternoon. Okay? Sir? I just heard about it for the first time. So you have 18 Secret Service going. Where is he exactly?
In South Africa.
In South Africa. And South Africa, you know, is on a watch list. You know that. Because what they're doing to people is brutal. And I've stopped having money go to South Africa. You know that. Billions of dollars. So he's in South Africa. That's very interesting. All right, I'm going to take a look at that. Thank you very much.
A Catholic church in Wichita, Kansas over the weekend was vandalized, statues destroyed, glass smashed, graffiti all over the place. Church officials in Kansas call it a hate crime. I know you signed an EO, eradicating anti-Christian bias. But sir, what more can the White House do to protect places of worship like St. Patrick's Church in Wichita, Kansas?
Well, we're going to take a look. I love Wichita. You know, I got big votes there. We won that state by a lot. We'll take a look at that. When did this happen?
This happened over the weekend, sir. Again, statues destroyed.
Terrible. Yeah, I think it's a terrible thing. And this was a Catholic church.
Yes, St. Patrick's.
Okay, I'm going to take a look at it. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I'll tell you, when we say from the beginning to the end, we will show you what's going on. That was the feed from earlier at the Kennedy Center. As now, is that President Trump in the middle? I think it is. Let's go right back to it.
What I'm talking about? The great Laura Ingraham. We got a lot of power in this board. But this stuff is such garbage, and yet it's been selling for 30 years. I said somebody's made a fortune. They get every highway, and it's always bad. But here it's really bad because it's old and bad, and it looks terrible. When we had the head of China coming in to top people right underneath President Xi, and he'll be coming at in the not too distant future. When we had India last week, we had France last week, we had a lot of people. We had Ireland, we had UK, and they come in and I say, how's it looking? They say, oh, it looks much better, you know, that's great. But it looked very good when we had it, but I'd like it to look beyond that. So we're going to spend a lot of effort, a lot of money on crime, and we're going to spend it on fixing up. We don't want graffitis on the beautiful white statuary marble, and we want to have our roads good and everything else. We'll be able to do that easily, and this is a part of it. I mean, Kennedy Center is a very big part of it, and you can't have this looking like it does. I'm so surprised because, you know, I know the person who was in charge of it, and he's a good man. I never realized this was in such bad shape. I've been so busy, I haven't been able to be here in a long time, and I shouldn't be with what I'm doing. But I thought it was important because I've been hearing reports, and I thought it was very important to make this good. It's a very big part of the fabric of Washington, D.C., and we're going to make our capital great again, just like we're going to make our country great again. April 2nd is Liberation Day for our country because we're going to finally be taking in money. We're already doing it, a lot of money. As you know, we put down some early tariffs on people and countries that we're not treating. Going to be a little different, but I call it April 2nd. That's when the tariffs kick in. December.
All right, so the president at the Kennedy Center, you saw the tour, you saw a little bit of the speech there. Of course, those cameras are a feed that we do pay for to have, so that's why we get all of the different footage that we get here at the network, of course, from the White House for the Oval Office. And, you know, having that ability even outside of the Beltway, even internationally for international trips, pretty cool stuff.
Oh, it's wonderful. So you can get unbridled access to your president, the chairman of the board, Donald John Trump at the Kennedy Center. And I love how he's shaping and helping bring back America, really focused on the culture and the culture wars. It makes a difference. It's not something that you can really stay away from. And it's sad to see that there's apparently these structural damages and these things that are going on with President Trump mentioning they just wanted Lee Greenwood to sing today. That would have cost $30,000 with the union structure currently at the center. So I think a lot of change is coming for the better for that wonderful facility.
Exactly. And, you know, you said he's the chairman of the board. He's the president of the United States. I remember when he was at The Apprentice, always sitting there as the president of the Trump organization. He should be Donald, boss, John Trump. Like, boss should be part of his actual name because he's just the boss constantly. It's pretty cool to see that. All right, so we have a number of sponsors to thank before we wrap up today. And if there's any breaking news, of course, we'll have it here at Right Side, whether on the channel live or on the internet when it comes to our various social media platforms. Let's go to Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. You get a lot of information right there with that free info kit on gold and silver. So thanking the Colonial Metals Group. Also Tax Network USA.
Yes, tnusa.com/RSBN. Be smart about your taxes because we have an IRS that might come after you. So settle those back taxes now. Protect yourself from the IRS. We know how much it grew under the last administration. Give these tax experts a call today. 800-357-1415. Again, call today. Do not delay because April 15th, right around the corner. tnusa.com/RSBN. Talk to the Patriot experts over at Tax Network Incorporated.
Definitely, and glad we have President Trump in office making the right decisions for our country too, moving forward. So it's great to see that. And let's go to Byrna.com/RSBN, the less lethal launcher. We thank Byrna for being a great sponsor. All you have to do is go to Byrna.com/RSBN for more information on that. Also, Angel Paste out of Spring, Texas. Of course, the product there, the Miracle Cream. They have other products as well. Use the RSBN promo code to get a discount. Thanking angelpaste.com and also mypillow.com.
Yes, mypillow.com/RSBN. A great way to start your day is to get that appropriate rest at night. So why not with the mega sale, the My Cross, you could save 30%. How about My Towel 6-pack for $29.98 and the flannel sheets $44.98. So $29.98 and $44.98 for great quality American-made products. I mean, where else can you find that really anywhere? And up to 2,000 different items going for 80% off, up to 80% off. I mean, wow, Mr. Mike Lindell making these things available to you, the American patriots, simply because of his marketing prowess, but also because he cares about you. He cares about free speech. He cares about this country and just wants to bring you a high-quality product made right in the great state of Minnesota.
And speaking of caring about free speech, Right Side Broadcasting Network, if you'd like to donate to us, all you do is text RSBN to 801-801. RSBN to 801-801. We also have the newsletter. You go to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter for more information on that. And of course, today is March 17th, Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day again. Wearing the gold tie. At the end of the rainbow, there's the gold. You've got the green one. President Trump wearing a bit of a green tie.
Oh, it doesn't look like the emerald aisle across the White House lawn there today. Nice and green, the beautiful sun shining upon this great nation. Truly a city upon a hill. Something very biblical, something that President Ronald Reagan would reflect upon, and it is truly morning again in America. And why is that? It's because of you, the American people. On November 5th, 2024, you made your voices resoundingly clear that we would make America safe again, strong again, healthy again, wealthy again, but ultimately make America great again with incredible leadership in roughly 56 days. It's amazing to think what will be accomplished in 4 years.
To your point, Robert, when you were just saying making everything great again, basically, it was making me think of the rallies and the arenas and the stadiums and just hearing the crowd chant USA, USA. And for us to be at this point, less than 60 days into this administration, and to see so many great things, we're looking forward to covering everything America First for you guys. So thanks so much for being a part of this network here.
It's really an honor. And we hope today that you get to celebrate, whether that's church services or perhaps spending some time with family and friends, maybe watching a movie like Far and Away, or even something like, well, it's a little bit on the violent side, but Gangs of New York. That's a great story about Irish Americans, what they had to go through in order to make their way in America's biggest cities, but maybe even some other classics that will bring you and your family together. How about The Quiet Man as well? I think about that. Whenever I think about my wonderful stepdad, I think about The Quiet Man because he's a lot like John Wayne. He looks oddly like him and has a great impression of him, by the way. So,
speaking of great impressions,
well, it's,
Bobby does a great job.
Let's just say I got some material this weekend.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
process.
Awesome.
Just observing and asking questions of this extraordinary 45th and 47th president. And again, I am just humbled and struck by the fact that he wants to share so much with the American people. He's so transparent. And to win what perhaps might be, per his own assessment, his last Mar-a-Lago Trump International Golf Club championship, to go out on the top like that, I'm sure it was bittersweet, and he seemed to really enjoy that dinner as well. I made sure to say, congratulations, Mr. President, and he said, oh, thank you, I really appreciate that. With also, getting into policy as well. Just a wonderful weekend upon Air Force One with colleagues from all over Washington, D.C. and different outlets as well. So always wonderful to break bread with those in the media. This is a special career path because it's defined by the American Constitution, a free and fair press. It truly is the backbone of the American constitutional republic.
Exactly. Conservative media. We do this for God, for family, for freedom, and here we are with an attitude of gratitude. So,
amen. And I like just to end with the St. Patrick wish for you. Cilantro, of course, if I had a Guinness, I would raise it up before we go to the beautiful bagpipes that we're playing on the streets of West Palm Beach, Florida on Saturday. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, which will be very soon, perhaps even tomorrow, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. For everyone here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, especially my esteemed colleague, Matthew Alvarez, may God grant you beautiful peace on this wonderful St. Patrick's Day. I hope you get to enjoy it with your family and friends. We'll toss now to those outstanding bagpipes from this weekend in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.